Hi, this is Mary from the Daily Sew. Today's video is about mini sewing machines. Now, why would I make a video about mini sewing machines? I mean, they do look like toys, right? Well, I understand that people like them. They come in a very affordable price point and different price points, and people say they do the job that they need them to do. So being skeptical like I am, I bought 4 different machines at different price points, and I've run them through some tests, and I have been sewing on them to see how long they have lasted. We've done lightweight fabric, knit fabric, denim fabric, different kinds of tests like that, and I'm happy to show you the results because I was a little bit surprised. So if you're ready, let's go. Okay, let's go over why I chose these 4 machines specifically. Starting with my lowest price point, $25, is the Singer, and I picked this one because there are a lot of sewing machines that look like this little handheld thing that you can go, and believe me, this model has been around a long time. I remember in the mid-70s, like a Ronco ad, I think it was, that had a machine that did this. You could hem your curtains while they were still hanging. So this is a portable machine, it's a cheap machine, but I chose it because of the Singer brand. I thought a reputable brand. There are some of these models that look just like it that are even cheaper, but I thought, well, I'll go with the Singer and maybe it'll last longer than just an hour. And then a little more pricey is the Magic Fly. I think it was about $40. I thought, looks like a toy, but it got really good reviews, tons of reviews. Now, I don't know if they're real reviews or not, but it got really good reviews that it was a great machine and it did the job. So I thought, okay, $40, let's see how well it does the job. This one is another step up. It was about $63, I think. It looked like a lot of machine for the money. It's got stitches, it's got a reverse. It looked like a great machine for the money. And then the highest price machine I have is this Singer M1000. It is marketed for mending. It's a mending machine. So I picked the Singer on this one because, again, for $100, I thought maybe I'd get a little bit more of a machine for not much more money. And let's see if that is actually true. Okay, out of our 4 machines, we're going to start with this one first. This is the Singer Stitch Quick. At coming in around $25, it is the cheapest of our 4 machines. The Stitch Quick is run by batteries, which are not included in your price. So add the price of batteries to your $25, or they do sell an AC adapter, but they, of course, sell it separately. The Stitch Quick does come with a couple of accessories. It's conveniently hidden away in the handle there. It does not have a light here under the needle so that illuminates your work surface, and it does get a little dark. I've noticed when I'm sewing it's pretty dark in there. It also does not have any guidelines etched into the throat plate there. It does not have a reverse stitch. There's no way of stitching backwards, and it only has 1 stitch, and that is your running stitch, but it's a lock stitch like a sewing machine would do. You cannot adjust the stitch length, which is fine for most fabrics, but not going to work for all fabrics. You do need, have longer stitches and shorter stitches depending on your fabric. It does let you adjust the tension of the stitches so that if your fabric's really thick, you can maybe play with the tension to get the tension right. So that's pretty nice. It's not fine-tuned though. My high-end machine, you turn it just a little, it makes a big difference. This one you're cranking for a while to make a difference in your tension. But you do have that. And it can fit most spools. It comes with this bobbin spool, like to be threaded, but you can take this spool pin off here and add almost any size spool. So if it can fit almost any size spool, which is nice, it's handy because you might have a big size spool and it'll fit it. Yeah, so that's pretty nice. For $25, this is what you get. Not thread not included, batteries not included, AC adapter not included. Our next machine is the Magic Fly, and it costs about $40. So it's the next tier up, so to speak. Now, to me, this definitely looks like a toy. I took it out of the box and I thought, oh, okay. It does come with an AC adapter, or you can choose to use batteries, the battery compartment right down there. It does have a foot pedal, very small foot pedal, but a foot pedal, or it has an on-off switch. When turned on, you can just put it on and not use the foot pedal at all. So that's nice. It does come with bobbins, 1 needle, and a needle threader. Oh, it also comes with this arm fits on there to support your fabric as you're sewing. So it does have a light, and when it's plugged in, I'll show you that, but there is a tiny little light bulb right there. It's not a lot of light, but it's nice to have. It does not have guidelines. Again, on the throat plate, there is no etched guidelines, so you're going to have to put a piece of tape down to know where you are. You do have some room here though, more room than the Singer Stitch Quick. It also has only one stitch, and that is the running stitch. It does not go reverse, and you cannot adjust the stitch length. You can't adjust the stitch tension. Again, in case you have thick fabric, thin fabric, that kind of stuff, it can be helpful. Although adjusting your stitch length would be even more helpful. So our third machine is the Donier Power Sewing Machine, and at $63, it is our third most expensive machine out of the 4 of them. The Donier Power Sewing Machine feels more like a traditional sewing machine, a little heft to it, the same kind of shape, even though it is small for a traditional sewing machine. It is powered by an AC adapter that comes with the machine, or you may choose to use batteries. There's a battery compartment underneath. Also, the power gets to the machine through a tiny foot pedal, or it has the option of not using the foot pedal and still running. It comes with 3 spools of thread, 3 bobbins. There's one in there, and there's a spool of thread up here. A couple of needles, needle threader, and a buttonhole foot. It goes here in place of your regular sewing foot to make buttonholes. Very nice. It also comes with this little guide that was actually attached in there somehow. I don't know how, but to keep your fingers, it's a like finger guard. Although that to me is very exaggerated. I've only known one person in all my life who've got their finger underneath the needle, and they were pulling an all-nighter, which goes to show you don't pull all-nighters. It does have a light, but it does not have any seam guides going across here. So when you're sewing, you're going to have to put some kind of guide or a piece of tape down here in order to have accurate seam allowances, which is really important. It does have a reverse stitch, so you hold this down while you're stitching, and you can make as many stitches backwards as long as you're holding it down, it'll go backwards. It does have other stitches than the straight stitch, and stitch length is adjustable. This is normal stitch length, this is slightly longer stitch length, and that is a basting length, which is the longest length. It also actually has a needle position. You can change the position of the needle to the left. So altogether it has a zigzag, a regular running stitch, and a buttonhole stitch. That's 3, 4, 5 stitches. That's pretty nice. Those are really nice basic stitches, and you pick them out through this guide here. The spool is up here, spool holder. It's kind of short. And get it off. There we go. So it's good for short spools. Does it lift up? No. It's good for short spools. They fit. Tall spools, see this fat one? Yeah, that would work. So it does have all different spool sizes. Our last machine is the Singer Mending Machine M1000. And this was in at $96, I think, when I bought it. So it is our most expensive, top of the line mini sewing machine. This machine also comes with an AC adapter right back here. There is no battery compartment. The foot pedal is it's larger than our last 2, but still kind of small. But I like the larger size. My foot fits on it better. The Singer machine comes with 4 bobbins altogether. This is the top, holds your thread onto the spool without the coming off, and a couple of needles. Well, I haven't used the key yet, so I'm not sure what the key is for, but must be, oh, I know it. That's really nice. Hey, you can unscrew this to clean the lint out. Well, that's actually very important. I'm glad I saw that key. It does have a light shine down onto the work surface, and this is the only one of our 4 machines that actually has a stitch guides that are right here, seam guides raised into the plastic. They are in centimeters, so if you're an inches person, you're going to have to measure and find out which one you need to use. It does have a reverse stitch, much like the other one. Just press it down, and as long as you're pressing down, it'll sew backwards. The feed dogs will guide the fabric backwards. Stitches, it has zigzag stitches of 3 different widths and lengths. It has regular running stitch in different lengths, and it also has different needle positions. So that is the Singer Mending Machine M1000. Let's put these babies to the test. The first test, winding a bobbin. Here I'm looking for how easy or difficult this task is and how well the thread is wound onto the bobbin. So I'm looking for good tension, not loose, and the distribution of the thread is even onto the bobbin spool. Our cheap machine does an okay job at distributing the thread onto the bobbin evenly. It isn't even, but it did better than some of the other machines. It also is pretty easy to set up. The budget machine tells you to hold the thread between your fingers as it winds onto the bobbin. Your fingers are applying the tension the thread needs, and apparently you also have to guide it up and down the bobbin spool to distribute the thread evenly onto the bobbin. The bobbin does sometimes fall off of the machine as you're winding it. Our mid-range machine is disappointing. It has a tension track, which is nice for winding the bobbin, but it didn't distribute the thread evenly onto the spool, which is important. When sewing, you need a properly wound bobbin or you can get knots under the machine and, of course, onto your project. Our pricey machine winds the best of this bunch. It's easy to put the bobbin on, it stays on, and it applies tension to the thread and it distributes it evenly onto the bobbin spool. Second test, threading the machine. I'm testing for how easy or difficult this is to do because you will do it a lot. On the cheap machine, I had to get tweezers out and turn the machine onto its side. It's a pain getting the thread through the tiny guides, and it's very difficult getting the thread through the guide on the needle shaft. The hand wheel is awkward and it's hard to turn, and it won't turn if the presser foot is raised, and the presser foot is supposed to be raised when threading the machine, so you're going to have to go back and forth with that. Our budget machine has marked guides to show you the threading order, which is nice, but they are also tiny openings. Tweezers will work here as well. Having more space in the machine bed area makes threading the needle easier, and the light definitely helps. The mid-range machine threads like a traditional machine with slots, and the tension discs are inside the casing. It threads smoothly and fast. Our pricey machine was the easiest to thread until I got to the finger guard, which was completely in the way of the needle. Luckily, it was easy to remove. Here, the bobbin case, just like our cheap machine, has a diagram showing you the direction the bobbin must be placed. This is really nice because all of us need a reminder sometimes. Third test, noise, rattling, and general sewing conditions. How noisy and how stable is the machine, and how well does it work? Our cheap machine is pretty loud, but it doesn't shake. In desktop mode, it goes until you press the trigger again, so it's hard to stop at an exact spot. In the handheld mode, it only sews if you are pressing the trigger. The spool thread did wrap around the spool pin as I was sewing, and that is going to be a big problem if you don't notice it. The budget machine has a high-pitched noise that, if you're sensitive, might be bothersome. The machine is stable, but it definitely feels like a toy, especially the lever to lift and lower the presser foot. The instruction manual says to thread the needle front to back, but this needle came threaded left to right, so stick with that. There are also some other parts of the instruction manual that aren't quite right. The mid-range machine is pretty noisy, but the machine's weight feels better and keeps the machine in place. The stitch selector takes a little muscle to switch, and it isn't always obvious that it is where it needs to be. Our pricey machine is the quietest. The heft and the size of the machine feel solid underneath your hands, and it doesn't rattle. The stitch selector is easy to use, and it feels like a stitch selector on a pricier machine. The reverse tab also feels substantial and untoy-like. Fourth test, stitch formation. Here I'm looking for a straightness of the individual stitches and that their length is consistent. Our cheap machine has such a basic tension disc system that you have to pull hard, by the way, on the thread to get some extra length in it in order to remove your project from the machine. This isn't something you're going to want to do all the time, but if you're not sewing much, it's not a problem. The bobbin thread tension is a little loose even after making some adjustments. The stitches are straight-ish and they are consistent in length. Our budget machine uses the same basic tension disc system as the cheap machine, so again, you have to pull the thread manually to free your project from the machine. It has 2 stitching speeds, slow and fast. The stitches seemed tight, but loosening the tension even slightly gave me stitches that were too loose. Perhaps it's just the feed dogs, and perhaps also a good ironing afterwards will straighten the fabric. The stitches are consistent in length at both speeds. The mid-range machine skipped a stitch, but the other stitches do have good tension. The length of the stitches is not consistent, but again, it is not horrible. The machine goes in and out of reverse easily. Our pricey machine has straight stitches and a consistent stitch length. It has 1 stitch speed and it reverses smoothly. It's easy to change stitches, but once, even though I switched from a zigzag to a straight, it still stitched a few zigs. I couldn't get it to make that mistake again, but it could happen. Fifth test, narrow hem on lightweight fabric. I'm testing if the machines can sew this lining fabric without eating it or pushing it under the throat plate. The cheap machine had a hard time guiding the fabric evenly under the needle, resulting in uneven stitch length and what we call bird's nest, or a tangle of threads on the underside. I also found it hard to guide the fabric due to the cramped space where the needle is, and because I have to hold and fold and guide it all at the same time in the air before the needle. Normally there's enough machine there in front of the needle that you can do this relatively easy on top of the machine surface, but here the machine is so small that it has no runway or space to do this. You have to do it in the air. It's a little bit trickier. The budget machine sewed even stitches and had enough table in front of the needle, plus an extra inch or 2 where the needle is, that folding and guiding a fold under the needle was not a problem. Again, the stitches looked a little strained, but I think pressing them after sewing would fix that. The mid-range machine again produced uneven length stitches, long then short and not always straight. The pricey machine went rogue for the first couple of inches, making almost a blind hem stitch pattern. I have no idea why, but when it got its act together, the stitches were even and the tension looked great. Sixth test, t-shirt knit fabric. I'm looking at how wavy or puckered the fabric will be after sewing, and can the fabric still stretch without popping a stitch. So puckering and wavy look to the fabric happen because the feed dogs under the fabric and the presser foot on top of the fabric are not feeding the fabric evenly under the needle. It happens more with stretch fabrics, and some of it will go away after a good pressing. High-end machines have an optional walking foot that can eliminate this, so I do expect some waviness from all of these machines. The cheap machine has a permanent short stitch length that cannot be adjusted, and the stitches do not stretch with the fabric. This is not a problem if it's on a garment that doesn't need to be stretched to be pulled, to be put on or taken off, like a bathrobe, for instance. The budget machine stitches allow a little more stretch than the cheap machine did. There is only slight puckering of the fabric. Funny, because the stitches on the woven fabric on this machine were more puckered than the other machine. So obviously I need to fiddle with the tension disc, or maybe the feed dogs have a strange speed. I don't know, but it worked for the knit fabric. The mid-range machine has a zigzag stitch which lets the fabric stretch and recover. And you can even choose a narrow zigzag stitch which will blend in better to the garment than the wider zigzag stitch. There is puckering, loosening the tension, or pressing the fabric after sewing will help somewhat. The price machine also has a narrow zigzag that allows for a lot of stretch and recovery. The stitches are pretty symmetrical too, which is nice. Again, some puckering as expected. Pressing after sewing should help a lot. Seventh test, sewing a patch onto a jean jacket. So I wanted to do this test to see if the machines can handle the thickness of denim fabric and a patch. And all the patches are from the same company to be sure that they were all the same thickness. Also, How well can the machine maneuver around the shape of a patch? And can the machine accommodate the jacket as you move it under the machine? For the cheap machine, I chose the simpler shaped patch because I knew maneuvering in that tiny space that this machine has was going to be hard enough. And I did have to stop sewing, remove the jacket, turn it around, and then reposition it under the needle and start sewing again instead of continuously sewing around the patch. There just isn't enough room there. The budget machine has barely enough room between the throat plate and the presser foot to get the jacket under the needle. Maneuvering the jacket as I sewed around the patch was also difficult because every move of the jacket also moved the machine. The machine is so lightweight, it just couldn't stay in place. It just moved with the jacket. It sewed okay, just a couple of ill-formed stitches on the underside. The mid-range machine does not like thick fabrics, no. Even after changing the needle to a heavy-duty needle, I was afraid the needle shaft itself was going to snap. Not the needle, but the thing holding the needle. It was definitely bending a bit. It just didn't have the strength to go through the fabric, and I was seriously expecting the needle to break at any minute. Our pricey machine did okay. It skipped a couple of stitches, but otherwise the stitches looked normal, and it was easier to move the jacket around, having both enough room and a heavy enough machine that it stayed put. The last and 8th test, hemming jeans with top stitch thread. So I think hemming pants or some similar heavy fabric is something everyone will do at least once, if not for themselves, for a friend. So can the machine handle 3 layers of denim? And this is a mid-weight stretch denim. And can the machine sew with top stitch thread, which is thicker thread than the all-purpose thread? Going over the thick seams when hemming jeans is going to be a problem even with a high-end machine. Normally you're going to use a seam jumper, and switching from power mode to manual mode and turning that hand wheel really helps get through the bulk. So this was a challenge for all 4 of the machines. The cheap machine did surprisingly okay. The stitches look fine. There are some skip stitches and a bird's nest underneath, but I think that was more to do with the thick top stitching thread. Getting over the seams is going to take a lot of patience with this machine, and turning that hard to turn hand wheel is the only way you're going to get through it. Our budget machine may have done the best when you look at the results, but it took a lot of manual manipulation on my end, both turning that hand wheel and pulling and pushing the jeans. Because the machine is so lightweight and turning the hand wheel took a lot of force, the machine kept hopping and moving. Plus, the plastic on the hand wheel left a cut on my finger from turning it so hard. The mid-range machine had stitching problems, both skip stitches and not properly formed stitches on the underside. The feed dogs under the fabric cowered, and they would not move the fabric under the needle. Turning the hand wheel was easier than both of the cheaper machines, but the machine gave up before I did, and that just put it into the test. The pricey machine also felt lacking in power to get through the hem. A few times the machine just stopped on its own, even the light went out. It was obviously at its limit. The stitches on top look okay, but the underside is not pretty. Okay, so how did our machines do? Let's go back to the first reason why you might want to buy one of these machines. Maybe you're interested in sewing, you're not sure, but you want to try it out. You don't want to spend too much money up front. Excellent choice. I get it. If that's the case, I would choose the best machine that your money can afford. So whatever you can afford, I tried to get the better of machines. For me, that would probably be the Singer M1000, because you're going to get frustrated when you sew on this machine. Although the stitches were great, this hand wheel is terrible, and threading it and no light, and you can't fit anything here. Just forget about it. You're going to get frustrated working on a machine like this, and then you're going to say, well, I don't like sewing. And then it's going to be $25 wasted. Whereas if you just go ahead and maybe put a little bit more money up front, which is sometimes hard to do, I understand, but if you save and put a little more money up front, you're going to be much more pleased. You're going to use it a lot more, and you're going to enjoy it. And that makes a difference. Maybe the second reason, maybe you know that you just want to mend a few items of clothing here and there and maybe make some curtains or something like that for your house. Well, they think any of these machines did the job. Although, if you're going to do heavy duty fabrics, know that none of these machines did a great job on that. They are all terrible with the thicknesses. So one of these machines and some hand stitches would do you just fine. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with hand stitches. I love hand stitching, but just know that it's not going to do everything you want it to do, no matter which one you choose, but it's going to do probably most of what you want to do. If you know that that's all you want to do is mending and a few household items. Now, if you know you want to sew because you've had it in class or a friend does it and you're like very interested, I think I would avoid any of these machines. Save up a little bit more money because you can get some good basic brother machines for like $150, and sometimes they're on sale. So it might even be worth just stepping up, because when you step up a little bit more money, you can change out the feet on the machine. It probably has a better buttonhole, things like that. You could put in a zipper foot. You'll need a zipper foot to put in zippers in garments, things like that. So again, I know it's a lot of money up front, but if you buy one of these and you want to sew, you're gonna grow out of it too fast. Go ahead and save up the money and buy a better machine to begin with. I have a Bernetta. It was about $300. It is a great machine. $300 is a really good price for a machine like that. And there's other great machines out there that don't cost a lot of money. Juki makes great machines, Juki, and Necchi. I'll put links for those below. Great machines. After a certain price point, of course, like Bernina, you're just paying for the name and you're not paying for the machine. So anyway, the takeaway here, sum it up, buy the best machine that you can afford. You'll get more out of it. You'll get better stitch quality and a lot less frustration. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any suggestions or comments, questions about what we just talked about, please put them in the comments below and I'll be sure to reply. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.